We come to item number 10 on the agenda, the clarification of the expiry date for the construction and wharves bylaws. And I'll ask Paul Wilson, please, to come to the table. We've got Paul here.
He's there.
Oh, right in front of me. Where did you come from? This is pretty straightforward. It's largely an error in the expiry date of these two sets of bylaws. I'll get somebody want to move the recommendations. Councillor Cooper, seconded Councillor Casey, and Paul, if you'd like to speak to it.
Thank you, through the Chair. This is largely a procedural report. As stated, it's to correct a bit of an anomaly and just to make it very clear that these two bylaws continue until reviewed, and that review will commence later this year or early next year, and will be completed in time before they expire in 2022. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. This item should be very brief. Are there any comments or questions? If not, I will put the recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Carried. Item number 11, again in the regulatory area, is a recommendation from the Regulatory Committee to make a new bylaw about navigation safety. So, Paul, if you stay there, and you may be joined by others, Ferretti Lualua and Bailey Vile.
I'm happy to speak to it, and then if there's any questions from our experts.
Yep. I'll ask you to move it first, and maybe Councillor Collins to second it, and maybe if you'd like to introduce the item, and Paul, if there's anything you'd like to add after that. Councillor Cooper, please. So
the Regulatory Committee is recommending that the governing body adopt the statement of proposal to make a new navigation bylaw for public consultation. The proposal is the outcome of a statutory bylaw review by the Regulatory Committee as required under the Local Government Act, and the proposal will replace the current bylaw, which expires on the 31st of July next year, 2021. And the bylaw will continue to make rules to help minimise the risk of fatalities, injuries, nuisance accidents, collisions and damage on Auckland's navigable water. So the committee's taken the opportunity to make the bylaw easier to read and understand, clarify and update current rules, and remove rules already covered in legislation, as we have done right through amalgamation, so we don't have duplication. The committee also recommends using the public consultative process to obtain views on whether to increase the speed limit for vessels in an area of the inner Waitemata Harbour between the Harbour Bridge, North Head and Tamaki Yacht Club. So the original statement I think the council's heard a range of views on the speed limit within this area. For example, Auckland Transport, the ferry services, consider it will enable ferries to better achieve public transport objectives in the plan without the need for making individual exemptions from the harbour master. And we recommend seeking feedback on a lower or higher limit than the proposed 18 knots, for example, current 12 or alternative like 15. And if adopted, all the consultation will take place from the 16th November through to the 14th of February. We've appointed a panel to hear the feedback, so I'll chair it with Councillor Collins and an IMSB member on the panel, and we'll report back to the governing body to help make its final decision in the middle of next year. So Paul is here, and Bailey, Ferretti and the Harbour Master. Yes? Hello. To answer any questions on the proposal, because I know that somebody asked me about the speed limit, so there may be some questions about that.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Paul, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, nothing to add.
That's great. So we'll do questions and comments together, and the first call is Councillor Wayne Walker.
So a couple of questions. I didn't catch the sort of areas under consideration, but are we also covering off the ferry run up to Gulf Harbour and Hobsonville?
Through the Chair, that's with the proposed increase in speed limit?
Sure.
No, that wouldn't be covered. So the area of the speed limit is an existing area, and it's limited to the area between the Harbour Bridge, North Head and Tamaki Yacht Club. So it wouldn't include the ferry as it gets to Hobsonville or to Gulf Harbour. That said, and at this point, thank you.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Andrew, the Harbour Master. Gulf Harbour, effectively once you get past North Head, there is no speed limit, so it's just how fast the ferry can travel in the prevailing weather conditions. Saying that if it's within 50 metres of another vessel, it has to slow down to 5 knots, and 5 knots within 200 metres of the shore. But there's no speed limit as such once you're in the open waters.
And over to Hobson Fall?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Once you get under the harbour bridge, as long as you stay 200 metres off the shore and 50 metres off another vessel, you can go as fast as you like. There is international regulations that say you have to operate at a safe speed, but there's no official speed limit. That's for the master to determine the safe speed.
The other question I've got is, are we factoring in the concerns around the resident population of Brooder's whales in the Hauraki Gulf?
It's a tough one because the Maritime Transport Act is the legislation that enables the council to make a navigation safety bylaw, and the navigation safety bylaw can only be written in the name of maritime safety, not environmental whale protection type things. There are existing legislation that is under the jurisdiction of Department of Conservation that tells you how close you can get to a marine mammal, for instance, but not in the bylaw.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrew. I might just get you to stay at the table in case there are other questions to you. Councillor Fletcher.
Mine is just by way of a comment. I think we're very fortunate to have Linda Cooper as the chair of regulatory. I realise how important this work is, and in a regulatory sense, I feel that these matters have been dealt with comprehensively. It's fantastic when they come before us and we can just sign them off, and to thank Paul and the Harbour Master as well. And these comments also apply on the other item on outdoor fireplaces. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Cathy Casey.
Andrew, I think you were there for the discussion at regulatory about reporting near misses. How do you communicate that to people on the water? Whose responsibility is it to tell them that if you have a near accident, you have to tell the harbour master?
Commercial vessels, it's legislated, and there's a legal requirement for them to tell us, and so the commercial operators know. Unfortunately, recreational boating, there's no qualifications required, and we have had enough a job trying to get people to navigate safely. So I've no doubt that a lot of them don't know their responsibility is to tell us if they have a near miss. We normally hear about it rather than through a reporting basis, through a complaints. You know, people are very keen to dob someone in if they go too fast past them or they have a near collision. So we usually hear about it in the form of a complaint rather than a report of such. And so once we get those, if we get a complaint, we'll contact the person and get more details and determine. Normally we can resolve it over a chat, but if it's serious, we pass it on to Maritime New Zealand, and they've got a team of investigators that can investigate. But yeah, there's nothing really that tells people at the moment that it's their duty to report near misses.
Thank you very much. I don't have any other questions or comments, so I want to again thank actually both Linda Cooper and Fessor Collins, because they're going to do the mahi on the Have You Say. This is a paper that then goes out to consultation, as you'll see from the recommendations, but the recommendations are straightforward, so I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. To the contrary, no. I declare it carried, and thank you very much, both Andrew and Paul, for appearing before us today. Item number 12 is also on regulatory, so Paul, you stay at the table again, and we may have Antonia Butler and Katie Kim, who are welcome to join at the table if they so wish. Councillor Cooper, I'll ask you to move this.
Thank you,
and can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Stewart, and this is to repeal the bylaw, or part of the bylaw, and to allow the remaining parts to lapse. But Councillor Cooper, if you'd like to introduce it.
As you said, Your Worship, this is not about a new bylaw. It's as has been our practice, to rationalise over time the number of bylaws we've had, but also not cause duplication if there are rules in either the unitary plan or legislation that regulate things, for us not to, double dip basically. So this is about the outdoor fire safety, and we're recommending that we revoke parts of the Council's outdoor fire safety bylaw that have been the responsibility of Fire and Emergency New Zealand FEN since 2017, and allow the remaining part about smoke nuisance to lapse in December next year, because this has been regulated under the Auckland Unitary Plan since 2016. So for both parts of that, it's not necessary any longer. So if we weren't doing this, the bylaw would expire in 2021 and we'd have to make a new one, but we don't need to. So we recommend, the recommendation is the outcome of the statutory bylaw review by the Regulatory Committee as required by the Local Government Act. And the review confirmed that the bylaw is no longer used and is not required. Unlike other bylaw reviews, the Local Government Act 2002 does not require a public consultative procedure to revoke parts of the bylaw that are inconsistent with the Fire and Emergency New Zealand Act. And for the remaining part of the bylaw about smoke nuisance, it recommended that the Council allow this part to lapse to avoid unnecessary public consultation, given it has been addressed through the Auckland Unitary Plan since 2016. And there are no changes of levels of service to the public, and as we had huge consultation in the Unitary Plan. People calling about fire safety will be referred to Fire and Emergency New Zealand, and as has been the case since 2017, and people calling about smoke nuisance or hazard will still be referred to the Unitary Plan, as has been the case since 2016. So I'll hand over for any questions to our capable staff.
Paul, is there anything you want to add to Councillor Cooper's comments?
No, nothing to add.
Pretty straightforward. We've got comments and questions together, and first comment coming from Councillor Sharon Stewart, please.
Thank you, Paul. Just on the fire hazard, you're probably aware, Paul, I'm sure that you're aware, as a question, that we had a fatality in Howick a week and a half ago. Sorry, I'm going to be reading that in a minute. and you all right?
Sorry, Sharon.
Sorry, you've put me off.
Sorry.
That's all right. I don't do it very often. Sorry. Okay. So anyway, we had this fatality in Howick, and that's down a very long driveway. I'm just wondering, can we make some recommendations to the fire service that because of the unitary plan that we're going to be having probably a dozen dwellings down long driveways where there's no water fire hydrants, that they make it that the public that have a lot of dead debris and whatever along fence lines and whatever have to have it removed, because where that fire actually happened, there is a lot of dead debris along the fence line, and other properties near it could, especially with guy fawkes coming, catch. So is there anything we can do that we can actually make some recommendations to the fire service that they tighten this up and they confirm it all up, because apparently they can't really do much about it, and I think we should be making sure that they do something about it, because we've got we've got all this unitary plan happening, and we've got all these long driveways where there's no fire hydrants, and fire emergency vehicles can't even get down there. I mean, that was, they had about 7 or 8 fire emergency vehicles that were there, and it was mainly because they didn't have a fire hydrant to get down to where the house was burning, and we're going to have lots and lots of these situations now. So is there anything we can do about that? Is there any recommendations that we from regulatory can seek, with the fire service?
Through the chair, we can certainly convey those concerns to them when we let them know what the resolution of the governing body is. Generally speaking, it's outside the scope of this bylaw we're talking about, though.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Greg Sayers.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Phil, just a quick question around the smoke So if somebody rings about a complaint of smoke coming across their property, that remains with Auckland Council, and we'd have to send our own compliance team out to have a look. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. I have no other comments or questions, so I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. I declare that carried. Thank you very much, Paul. We have item